So let me walk you guys through the materials that we'll be using for this tutorial. I decided to combine these two beautiful shade of blue together. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I just feel like these two together just looks so beautiful. This is a fluffy yarn. I think it is a fluffy yarn. I am going to find a way to show you guys the texture of the yarn, because the lighting here would not really do this justice, but you can see that it's a little bit fluffy compared to this, and it's also a little bit lightweight, so I'm guessing this is a lightweight yarn. And I will be combining this with this medium acrylic weight yarn. At the end of the video, I'll let you guys know exactly how much I use, or I'll just leave everything down in the description box below. Again, you don't have to combine these two if you don't want to. This is 100 gram. I know it's a little bit tiny. I also thought, oh, this is tiny when I received the yarn. And this is also 100 gram, by the way. So two of these is going to be 200, which means the item might get a little bit heavy, but I don't mind because it's winter. I'm making this for winter, so I don't mind it being heavy because I know it's going to be warm. Next on the list of materials will be a crochet hook. I will be using a 5mm for this. This is what I use for the entire project, so you don't have to switch. The recommended size is actually a 3. Let me guess. Let me check. The recommended size for the medium weight yarn is actually a 4 and a 4.5, but obviously because I'm going to double the strings, I decided to use a 5mm. So what I'll say is just check. If you decide to double it, then just size up with your crochet hook. If you decide not to, then just stick to the recommended size on the yarn. The next material will be a measurement tape, and this is obviously because we need some measurements for the sweater. Yeah. Finally, you're going to need a zipper. The zipper length is optional. This depends on how long or how wide you want the zipper to actually go. I think I got myself about 12 inches of this, which is 30 centimeter, if I'm not mistaken, or 35 centimeter. But again, like I said, this is actually different because I have some sweaters that just stop right here, which is like a shorter centimeter, and ones that go all the way down. I wanted mine to go a little bit more down, so that's the reason why I got this length. Obviously it needs to match the color that your desired color. So while you're picking the zipper, definitely check that. Also, I want to mention that this is not a usual, just a normal zipper. This is like a jacket zipper. So if you're buying, I would suggest you type in jacket zipper because it's way more stronger compared to the normal zipper that you use for a dress or maybe a skirt. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's it. Let's take measurement before we go to the table and start working on the actual pattern. Okay, so we are going to take measurement. You would not be needing a lot of measurement for this pattern because it's a basic back row, back panel, front panel, sleeve pattern, so you don't really need much. But what I'll suggest is just your bust measurement, and obviously because this is a sweater and I'm sure you don't want it to be fitted, you're just going to take a measurement. And depending, if you have a sweater that you like the fit is just perfect, then just take those measurements. Take the bust, the chest measurement on the sweater, the length measurement, depending on how long you want. I want mine to be a little bit on the longer side, not like a dress, but just a little bit longer because I think I'm going to eventually wear this with leggings. So that's just the look. That's just the look. But then you're going to need, I think at this point, I don't really need to show you guys how to take your measurements. I wanted to, but no. I'm going to link my measurement video down below. I also list the measurements that you will be needing. So you're going to need your bust measurement, your desired sweater length measurement. You are also going to need your armpit hole measurement, which is basically around the side of your arm. And then you're going to need your sleeve length, which is basically from your shoulders to your desired sleeve. You are going to now need the length for the front panel because the front panel is a little bit different from the back. So that is what I think I should show you guys how to make. So luckily I already have this top on that actually looks like the sweater design, but I want the neckline to come a little bit high just because of the weather. So this is perfect for me to just take a measurement. So if you have something like this that I have on now, I'll suggest you to wear that and make it easy for you to take the measurement. So basically from wherever you want the sweater to start up until where you want the zipper to end. I think I want my zipper to be right around there, which means all I'm going to do is, let's say for example, if this is 10 inches, I am going to subtract 10 inches from my full length. So let's say my full length is 25 inches. I am going to subtract 10 from 25, which would eventually give me 11, which means for the first part of the front panel, it is going to be 11 inches long before we do the next part. So those are the measurements I think you'll be needing. If there's anything else, I'll link them down below in the description box. Because we are starting with the back panel, because that's what I always do, because the moment you just get what the back panel is about, the rest of it is going to be super easy for you to get through. So you're going to make a slip knot, and in my case I chained a total of 90, but you're basically going to divide your bust measurement into 2, and if you want to make this baggy again, you can add a few more inches to it, and you're going to make a chain that is as long as that divided measurement that you just did. So after your chain, you should have something like this. You can go ahead and take the measurements again just to be very sure that you have the same exact measurement. So now from here, you're going to chain an extra one, which is going to be a turning chain. Right after, you're going to insert one after double crochet actually. So you're going to go into the second chain with your first double crochet stitch. And to work a double crochet, if you're a beginner, it's just to yarn over, insert your crochet hook into the chain, grab the yarn and pull through, and you should have 3 loops. You are going to yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, and lastly yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. And you're just going to go ahead and insert one double crochet until you get to the very end of the row. So basically making sure you go into every chain, because if you skip a chain, you are going to end up with a short panel, which will eventually play with the size of your sweater. So just make sure you insert one double crochet into every chain and not skip any chain. So right here I have my first row of double crochet, and again, if you want to check the length, you should do so. For the next row, we are going to repeat the same double crochet row, but this time we're going to chain 1 and turn. Honestly, the same thing we did. So you're going to chain 1 and turn, and into your very first double crochet, you are going to insert 1 double crochet, and just continue to insert 1 double crochet into every stitch until you get to the very end of the row. And again, like I mentioned, this pattern is super simple, so you're going to just go ahead and repeat 1 double crochet. Make sure you chain 1 at the very beginning of each row, and then you are going to do this until you have your desired length. So the length measurement you did take at the very beginning, you are just going to repeat this rows of double crochet until this panel is as long as that measurement, and then when you have that complete, I'll see you guys for the next step, because then we're going to start the front panel. So this right here is my back panel. I think I did about, let me check the amount of rows I did. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, now I'm mistaken. 1, 2, 3. I think I did 22 times 2, 44. Yes, I did a total of 44 rows. This is how big the panel is. And I think the length is perfect. I think this is about, let me just check the length, guys. Let me check. And this is 26 inches. This is currently 26 inches. So now we are going to start the front panel. For the front panel, you are going to repeat the same exact step. But remember, at the very beginning of the video, I told you guys that the measurement from your neck down up until wherever you want the zipper to stop is what you're going to subtract from your full measurement. So after you have your back panel complete, in my case, it's 26 inches. The 10 inches that I want to leave for the zipper is going to be subtracted from this, which means eventually now for the front panel, I am going to chain the same amount of rows, and I'm going to do this until I have a total of 16 rows. After the 16 rows, I'm going to come back and show you guys what the next step is, because again, the front panel is going to be different from the back panel, because we need to leave something for the zipper. So go do that, and I'll see you guys when I have it complete. So you want to make sure you chain the same amount of chains and subtract the length from the panel, from the back panel, which is your full length, and make sure you do that until you have that measurement. So do that, and I'll see you guys when mine is complete. So right here I just finished my front panel, half of the front panel. Like I mentioned, I did a total of 26 rows, and this should be about 16 inches, which is just perfect because the remaining 10 rows will be done with the divided measurement that I mentioned earlier. So now what you're going to do is you're going to grab stitch markers, two of these, and you are going to fold your panel into two. Fold your front panel into two, and now we are going to just find the center stitch on the panel. Fold your panel into two, making sure both ends actually meet at the very edge. And right here you are going to find your center stitch. When you find your center stitch, you are going to mark, you're not marking the center stitch, but you're marking the stitch to the left, to the right in this case, with a stitch marker. And you are marking the stitch to the left. So basically one stitch to the right and one stitch to the left, and the center stitch is going to be right at the center of both of the stitch markers. So right here you should have something like this. So you can see that I have a stitch that is right at the center, and I have the stitch to the right marked and the stitch to the left marked. So from here on we are going to repeat the same step. So still with my 5mm, I am just going to go ahead and start my next row, and again as usual I am going to chain 1 and turn, and into the first double crochet with my first double crochet, and I'm just going to go ahead and do 1 double crochet until I get to the first stitch marker right there. So right here I am coming to my first stitch marker, so I'm going to go ahead and take that off because I will be going into the stitch with my last double crochet, and from here on I am going to chain 1 and turn, and just repeat the same step. So you're basically stopping where the stitch marker, your first stitch marker is, and you are going to insert 1 double crochet into that very first stitch and 1 double crochet across, and just the same way we worked the previous part rows, that's what you're going to do. But then again, remember that we are going to do something else around the neck, so you're going to repeat this for a total of, so in my case I need to do 10 more inches, but instead of doing 10 inches with this, I am just going to do 7 because the remaining 3 inches we are going to do something different. So I'm just going to repeat my next 7 inches, which obviously will be different depending on your tension, and I'll see you guys when I have my next 7 inches complete so we can actually do the next step. So right here I have an update. I actually wanted to do the one side so I can tell, so I can see what I'm doing and be able to explain this to you guys, but you're basically going to repeat this row like I explained. I did a total of 12 on each side, and then the remaining 3 inches, mind you the 12 rows is about 7 inches right there, and then the remaining 3 inches that I need, because I want to make sure that the side of the panel is entirely is the full length of the back panel. So my back panel was 26, which means this has to be 26 inches, which is perfect. So now I'm going to show you guys what I did for this opposite side of the panel, and it is super easy. All you're going to do is you are going to grab your measurement tape, and the measurement tape is we are going to go inward. So we want to create a shoulder panel that is going to fall on the shoulders, but it's not going to fall on the neck, right? So what you're going to do is you are going to take a measurement and you're going to mark 3 inches on the side. If you're making a size small, 3 inches is also fine. If you're making a size medium like I am, or large. Honestly, 3 inches is fine. So just measure 3 inches in there, and you are going to mark the stitch. For me, it's the 9th stitch because I already did the side, so obviously no. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, which means when I get here I'm going to stop. I also wanted to mention that yours might be different depending on the size, also depending on the weight of yarn you're using. So that's the reason why I'm using measurement instead of inches, instead of stitches, sorry, because mine is 9, but then yours might be 12 or even less depending on how wide or how big your yarn is. So what you're going to do from here on is you want to make sure you still have your yarn attached. So after my 12 row, I am going to just chain 1, just the same way I would start any row. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and right into this very first, I'm going to go with my first double crochet stitch and just make my way up until that mark area. So basically for me it's going to be right before my last 9 set of stitches. So I'm just going to do 1 double crochet like this until I get to that spot. So right here I am at the last stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just chain 1 and turn, and we are going to just repeat another row of double crochet. So you want to make sure you go into that very first stitch because you are not decreasing. All you're going to do is just repeat 1 row of double crochet, and I'm going to do a total for my own measurement. I am going to do a total of 6, which will eventually get my panel to be 26 inches in total. A total of 6 rows, by the way, not 6 inches. So 6 rows is equivalent to 3 inches in my on case, and that is going to leave my front panel with 26 inches, which is going to be the same as the back panel. So you're going to just make sure you chain 1 at the beginning of each row. When you get to the edge, you're going to just repeat 1 double crochet, chain 1, and come up until the opposite side until you have your final length. So do that, and I'll see you guys when mine is complete. And your panel should look like this. So we have this opening and we have this that goes to the side. So this is going to be your shoulder panel. All you have to do now is grab your back panel and attach these two together. Grab your back panel and align these two together. I like to make sure that the edge where I started aligns with the edge on the front panel as well, because then you know at the very edge it has less tension, right? I don't know, for some reason my front panel is way bigger. I don't know what happened there, but I'm just gonna attach these two together, right? So to attach the shoulders, all you are going to do is single crochet into the back panel because I still have my yarn attached to the front panel. So I'm just going to grab the back panel and I'm going to go into that very first space and just grab the yarn, and I'm just going to take my time and make my way to the next stitch, and the next stitch on the back panel, grab the yarn and single crochet the two. Next stitch on the front, next stitch on the back, single crochet the two, next stitch on the front, 1 at the back, and single crochet. And that is what you're going to do until you have this entire shoulder panel. Single crochet to the back panel. To make sure you're repeating the same step until you get to the edge of the panel of the shoulders like I mentioned, and you're just going to chain 1 and cut off your yarn. And I usually just like to sew in my yarn already, so I don't have to do this later. All I have to do is cut this off. And now of course you're going to do the same thing with the opposite shoulders, and when you have both of them complete I'll see you guys. So I'm just going to do the same exact step with my opposite shoulders. What's up with the light? Hey guys, so I just finished single crocheting the two shoulders together. So now what you're going to do is, remember the armpit hole measurements we did take at the very beginning is what you're going to need for this next step. So you are going to now go ahead and take the measurement into You're going to divide that measurement into two. So let's say, for example, if your measurement was 9 inches, no, what am I saying? If it was 16 divided by 2, that would be 8. So you're going to just grab the tape, and starting from the very top, you are going to mark 8 inches. So you're dividing that because eventually there are two sides to the panel, so when you take the measurement around, it's going to be 16, which is the measurement for your armpit hole, right? But again, this is a sweater, so I always suggest you make this a little bit more wider so you can have room to just feel more comfortable, because it's supposed to be. So I think mine is eventually going to be 11 inches. Usually I'd go for 7 or 7.5, but because of the fitting that I'm going for, it's going to be 11. So for me, I am going to grab the yarn, my crochet hook, sorry, and I'm going to attach that. You also want to make sure that you align the panel well, so the edge, they actually need to reach, and make sure they are aligned together perfectly. So you're going to grab your working yarn. Again, just to attach the things, you don't have to use double string. I am just using that because I have excess yarn. So you're going to just make a knot, and just the same thing we did around the shoulders, you are going to single crochet, carefully single crochet the two sides of the panels together, and you are going to of course do the same thing on the opposite side. Do that, and then I'll see you guys for the sleeve, because we are going to work on the sleeve next. Guys, we are going to get started with the sleeve. I am still using the 5mm for this. Like I mentioned, this is what I'm using for the entire project. You are going to double your strings if you did decide to do that, and make a slip knot. And the sleeve, we are going to be using the armpit hole measurement for this, and this is obviously going to be depending on whatever size you're making. So in my case, I end up chaining 70, and that is because I want my sleeve a little bit on the oversized side, just because of the size of the sweater. So I'm going to go ahead and chain a total of 70. Right here I have my 70 chains. So what I'm going to do is we are going to straighten this chain, because we will be going into the very first chain with a slip stitch before we start the row. So you want to make sure your chain is straight, and you are going to go into your very first chain that you created and slip stitch into that chain. After the slip stitch, we are going to go ahead and go into that very first space with a single crochet, and after the single crochet you are going to chain one. So the single crochet that we just did and the chain one is equivalent to a double crochet stitch, but that is what we're going to be doing at the beginning of each row. So for the next chain, you're going to just insert one double crochet, again because we're still using double crochet for the sleeve pattern, which means right after you're going to go ahead and insert one double crochet into every chain until you get to the very beginning of the row. So you want to make sure you're keeping a straight chain to do so, because you don't want this chain, you don't want this panel to be twisted. So just insert one double crochet like I am doing now until you get to the very beginning of the row. So right here I am coming to the very end of the row. To end of the row, I am going to look for my first stitch. So remember we did a single crochet chain one. We are going to slip stitch into that chain one that we did at the very beginning. So find your chain one space, and you are going to slip stitch right into that stitch to end of the row. And you should have something like this. So for the next row, you are going to turn, because we are going to go to the opposite side of the panel. After turning, you are going to insert a single crochet right into that very first, so basically where your stitch is, you are going to go in with a single crochet, and after the single crochet you are going to chain one. Again, like I said, this is also equivalent to a double crochet stitch. From here on, you are just going to repeat one double crochet like you did from the previous row into every stitch across. You can count your stitches just to make sure you are keeping the same amount of stitches you did have at the very beginning, because you don't want to increase your stitches and you also don't want to decrease your stitches, so you want to make sure you keep the same amount. So counting your stitches or using a stitch marker is also super helpful, so you can just mark this very first space, which is a chain one. It's also obviously different from the double crochet stitch, even though it looks the same, so you can actually feel and see that it's different. And this is what you're going to repeat with no increasing and no decreasing. We just one double crochet into every stitch all across. Make sure you slip stitch into the chain one that you did at the very beginning to end of your row, and you are going to turn to the opposite side like I just did, and repeat this until you have your desired sleeve length. Remember the measurement we did take at the very beginning. You are going to repeat this until you have that full measurement, and I'll see you guys when it's complete. So this is what my sleeve looks like. It is a little bit on the wider side, and I did mention that I wanted it to be like this, obviously because of the look. But now that I'm looking at it, is a little bit way more wider than I wanted. So I don't know if I'm going to take this out, which will cost me a lot of time. I think I might as well just leave it like this. I don't know, but this is what you should have at the end of the row. Again, I wanted to show you guys that ending the row the way I showed you with the slip stitch actually just like doesn't give you a seam. So you know, usually if you chain one and then you do a double crochet into that very first chain, or you chain three, I usually don't like the way it actually looks. And now I'm trying to look for the side that I slip stitch. It's also like it's so difficult to for you to see, so you can't even see the difference between the stitches where you slip stitched and where you literally just have a double crochet. You cannot see the difference unless you look very well, and that is perfect. So you're just gonna repeat the same exact step for your opposite panel, because of course you need two of these to be able to have your sweater complete. But so far I don't know what I think about the width of it. I think it's a little bit too big. I wanted it to be like something like this, so like a room, but this is a little bit too wide, so I don't know, but I'll decide if I'm going to. I'll let you guys know whatever I decide. After you have your panels single crochet together, you are going to turn upside down, so you want to make sure that the seam is inside. And now you are going to grab your sleeve after you have them complete as well, and we are now going to attach the sleeve to the panel. I also like to make sure I find where my sleeve starts and make sure that is going to be at the very bottom. Let's see, I think for me it's this. So this is where my sleeve started, so that is going to be outside while the last row is going to be inside. So what I'm going to do to attach this is so after you have your sleeve complete, you are going to grab your panel, and you want to still make sure that the seam is facing you. So when you turn this around, you are going to turn that to the right side, and you are going to grab the sleeve. Make sure you look for where you started, because that is what is going to be at the very bottom, and where you ended off your row is going to be at the very top. Keep that in mind. So now we are going to attach the sleeve, and because of the wideness of my sleeve, I'm just going to fold this into two, and I'm going to pass this inside before I start attaching these together. I also like to make sure that the area where I ended off my row aligns with this side, so it's going to be under the armpit area. So if you have to play around with this, please do so. And just the same method we used to attach the shoulders and the sides, that is exactly what you're going to use, but this time around you're just going to attach the sleeve to the panels, right? So you're still going to grab your yarn. If you decide to use one string, of course do so, and you are going to attach that by going into the sleeve, into the armpit area on the pattern, and into the sleeve, and secure that with a knot. And like I said, just the same way we did, you are going to play around with single crochets to get these two attached. So I like to just go in there, grab the yarn and pull through, and I usually just like to chain one and just carefully go into the next available space on the pattern, the next available space on the sleeve, grab the yarn, pull through, and single crochet these two. You can use a slip stitch for this method, and you can also use a needle if you want to, but you're just carefully going to just go into the next available space on the sweater, the next available space on the sleeve, and single crochet all around. And when you get to the edge, you're just going to cut off your yarn, and of course repeat the same pattern for the opposite sleeve as well. Alright, so after attaching both sleeve, I am just gonna turn this to the right side because we are going to do something around the neck. So you're going to grab your yarn and you are going to attach that to the side of the neck. So I am going to go ahead and attach my yarn right into this very first stitch with a knot. And to make sure it's secure, I like to go back with another knot just to make sure it's super secure. From here on, we are going to work a first row of double crochet. So I like to grab this excess yarn and pass this underneath, and I'm going to pull through. Well, for this very first row, I am going to go ahead and chain one and insert a double crochet into that very first stitch. And one double crochet into the next 8 stitches until I get to the very edge of the panel. So now that I am at the edge, I should have a total of 9 stitches in total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is an extra stitch. So you want to make sure you keep the same amount of stitches right there. I should have 9 stitches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go around the side of the panel with double crochet stitches, but because we can really tell, just like this part, we are going to just go ahead and insert one double crochet into every available space. So you're slightly going to just bend your panel, and into this very first space I'm going to go with one double crochet, and right after I have this actual stitch, but then obviously because it's worked this way, I am just going to go into that stitch with one double crochet. And you can tell that I don't have a gap in between, so you don't want to have a gap in between the stitches. And right from there, I am going to take this next space right here, next double crochet, I am going to insert one double crochet. And because right there is a gap, I'm just going to take that off. So right here, you're going to insert a double crochet. And I cannot really tell you guys how much you can do. You just want to make sure there is no gap in between your stitches. So if you insert a double crochet somewhere and you see that there is a big gap, you're going to take that off and go back into the next the space previously. So you want to make sure there is no gap in between your stitches, because then there is the right amount of double crochets, right? So like this, you can see that I'm just carefully going into available space around this side of the panel with one double crochet until I get to the top. So I'm still making my way up with my one double crochet. Making my way up with one double crochet until I get to the very top. And when you get to the very top, this is going to be easy because you know you have a double crochet stitch. So you're just going to go where a double crochet stitch is with one double crochet until you get to the opposite side. So right here I'm at the very edge, which means what I did right here is what I'm going to repeat. Just make sure I go into every available space. You can also count the stitches you did from this edge up until this, so you can have the same amount from here to here, but I'm just going to do the same thing. And then of course I'm going to insert one double crochet until I get to this point. So do that and I'll see you guys when it's complete. So you should have something like this after your first row. So now you're going to grab the zipper that you decide to use, and now what you're going to do is I'm just going to align the zipper, making sure the very edge aligns with the very edge on the side, and this is going to help me to know how much I need to do, how many rows I need to do for me to get this neck panel to be long enough, because we are going to eventually attach the neck panel to the zipper. So you can just go ahead and chain one when you get to the end of the row, but I'm just going to use this zipper to just show you guys exactly what I mean. So you want to just chain one and turn, and you're going to go all around again, but then this panel has to be as long up until the zipper. I hope you guys understand, but I'm going to do mine, and when I have that complete I'll show you guys exactly what I mean. So you're going to chain one for this next row. For this next row you're just going to chain one and go into that very first stitch with your first double crochet stitch and repeat one double crochet all around. So because you already have a foundation row, this is going to be super simple. All you have to do is go all around with your double crochet row. So do that and I'll see you guys after my next few rows, because I don't know how much I'll be needing. I'm just going to go ahead and keep checking this, especially the front part. You want to keep checking the front part until this front is as long, up until it gets to the teeth. So let me open this so you guys can see that it has to get up until the teeth of the zipper, and then I'll see you guys and so we can attach the zipper together. So I finished the neck panel and now I'm going to attach the zip. I also wanted to mention that, again, I already mentioned this, you want to make sure that the zip, the length that you create around the neck can actually come all the way to the very edge of the zipper, so it should look like this. So the length from here to here has to be the full length of the zipper. So mine is 13 inches from here to here, and this from here to here is also 13 inches. So you're going to grab a needle, making sure that whatever yarn you are going to use for this part aligns with the yarn that you've been using, because you want to make sure it actually matches with the yarn. So you can use a normal needle for this and then use a white, but I just like to use a yarn instead of just a normal thread, because I think I just like the way it turns out. So you're going to make knot. I usually like to make knot on one side, so I'm just going to make knot on one end of the yarn and the other end is loose. I am actually going to grab some needles so I can mark the zipper to the panel. I will be using some safety pin to mark. I could have used a stitch marker, but because the stitch marker cannot go into the zipper, it is not going to be helpful. So I'm just going to use a safety pin, but you can also use a sewing pin. I just don't know where my sewing pin is at the moment, so I'm just going to open this and I'm going to mark the very top of the cardigan or sweater to the very top of the zipper. So you want to make sure that the pin goes through and comes back. This way it's going to keep the zipper intact, so it's going to be easy for me to just know where I am going to seam. So I'm going to do this for two more times, just so, again, like I said, it's going to be easy for me to single crochet or sew this zipper to the sweater. So I'm just going to carefully go in and mark that. pin that down, and I'm gonna do that once more. And now I can actually just start with the sewing. So to sew this, it is super easy. You are going to start, I am going to start from the inside of the sweater, because I want my knots that I made to be inwards basically. So you want to make sure you go into this very first. This is super hard, so I'm just gonna go into the very first space right there, and on the sweater, and I'm just gonna pull this through right there. And of course it's not secure now, so I'm just gonna go back into that sweater and go into the next. So I'm gonna go to this side, so I'm gonna make my way up to the side, and I'm gonna go to that side just so I can have this secure before I start working upwards. And I'm gonna pull that through, and going to also make my way back close to the teeth of the zipper, and I'm going to go into that very first stitch. Those first 3 stitches is just to make sure I have the first few secure. So now for me, I'm just going to go into this next space, and I'm going to go into the zipper, and I'm going to pull that through, and this is what it looks like from the inside. I'm going to go upwards a little and align that with the sweater and pull through. I will actually suggest you do a double knot, because I think it's going to make it a little bit more tighter compared to just a single knot. So do that. I already started with a single knot, so I'm just going to continue, but you're just carefully going to make your way up by moving your needle just few centimeters or just few spaces upwards. You want to make sure you have, see right there, it is attached. So marking the stitches with this pin is going to just help you to not overstretch your sweater, and making sure you are evenly sewing the sweater to the zipper. Just like that. That is what I'm carefully going to keep doing until I make my way up. So you can see that this part is attached, and right there. You also want to make sure you're not sewing too close to the teeth, because if you do, you might have issues opening the zip. So now you can see it's closed because I don't want a lot of gap as well, but I'm not sewing super close to the teeth. I want to make sure there's still room for the zipper to come down. And when you make your way up, you're just going to carefully take off the pin as you go, because obviously you have that side secure, so you know you're safe. You're just going to take off the pin until you get to the very top. So I just finished, well, not finished entirely, but I'm going to show you guys how you can end off one side, because you're going to repeat the same exact step on the opposite side. So I still have, by the way, this is what it looks from the back, from the inside. What you're going to do, you're just basically going to make your way up. So I already passed the teeth edge, so I'm just going to make my way up until I get to the very last space, because you want to make sure that you attach this to the very top as well, just so it's super secure. So you want to go into that very top stitch on the last double crochet, and you are going to sew this in as well, just the same thing you've been doing. Sew that in, and I'll go back into that same space with few more stitches, just so it's secure, just the same thing I did at the very beginning by going into the stitch with few more stitches, because you want to make sure the very top and the very edge is super secure before you end this off. That way the zipper is not going to fall off. Literally just make sure it's secure like this, super secure, and you can just go ahead and make a knot. So you're going to make a knot, and a few more before you sew in the loose end. From here you can go ahead and cut off your yarn, and I'm just gonna sew in the remaining rest of the yarn before I cut off any excess, because if I cut it now I'm going to have a super sharp thing right there and it doesn't look decent. So doing this makes it look 10 times better. And of course you're going to cut off the excess when you have that secure. And right there we just attached the very first part of this zipper, and you are going to repeat the same exact step for the opposite zipper. So you're going to mark at least 3 just to make sure you keep the same. So mark the very top to the very top. If you want to start, I think I'm going to start from the top this time around, so I'm going to mark the very bottom. So I'm going to mark the very bottom to the very bottom. Like that. Grab another one and do the same thing. You want to make sure you're aligning this well. Right there. Secure. And I'm gonna do this once more. And I'm just going to make a knot on my needle, and I'm going to sew until I get to this very end. Hey guys, and just like that I have my zipper attached, and now we are going to work on the pocket. I also wanted to mention that the zipper and the pocket are optional. You don't have to do this, but that's just the idea that I had, and I wanted to just execute it. But this is what the zipper looks like attached. You can obviously just leave it like this, open. I love it. I feel like if you use a normal needle and thread, then the stitches will be a little more visible, but I don't mind it being like this, especially when it's just for me and not for anybody else. So we are going to work on the pocket. The pocket is super easy. I already worked on one on the lower part of it, so all I did was I made a chain And then I did my rows just the same way. I'm just gonna take the measurement for reference. This is a 16 inches wide and 12 inches long. So for you to know exactly what length, you are going to take the full length of the front panel, and you are going to divide that amount. Not divide, but you're just going to find the center. So after you take the full length, you should be able to know where the center is, and my center is basically right there. So this is going to be my center. Then I will decide how many inches I want from the side to the side, but you want to make sure it's an even number. So if you're going to go 8 inches, so you're going to go 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. You want to make sure you count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So in total it's going to be 16, and that is exactly what I did. So when you have your panel, you're just going to chain a chain that is 16 inches long, that is 16 inches wide, and you're going to just do that until you have your desired length. And the length, of course, is also depends on how long you want the pocket to be. I want a little gap around the lower part, but I also want the pocket to be right before, like right underneath the zipper. That is where I want the pocket to be. So I just did 1 2 3 rows upwards, and my pocket is gonna be right there. You also want to make sure this aligns with the center. So make sure the zipper aligns with the center where you placed you're going to place your pocket. And you are just going to use your needle, the same needle, and you're going to single crochet, or single crochet, you're going to sew the pocket onto the front panel from this side to this side to this side and to this side. You can also still use whatever you want to use to mark the stitches. You can use a stitch marker to do that, but I don't think, honestly, I think it's just the best that I do that. So I'm just gonna grab stitch markers right there, and I'm going to do it on the side. I'm not going to attach this, but securing this will help me to just be able to play around with the pocket easily. And I'm still going to use a single knot, so I'm still using a single knot. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go inside, and I'm going to go through the sweater into the pocket right there, into that corner stitch, and pull through. You want to make sure this knot is super secure, guys, because you did see how that knot easily just went through that stitch. So right there, you're going to go into a stitch, and you're going like this. So you're basically going in and going out. Right there. And this is what I'm going to repeat. Go in, go out, attach. This is honestly easy, super easy to do. You can also, I think you can also use a slip stitch for this method, but again, I'm already using a needle, so it just makes it easy for me. And that's how you're going to attach this pocket all around, like I showed you guys, until you have the 3 corners attached. Make sure you leave this, because this is going to be where the pocket is going to be. And I'll finish that, and I'll show you guys how we're going to make a pocket cover. Hey guys, so I am going to show you guys how you can make a cover for the pocket in case you want to. You can also leave it like that if you want to. So I chained the same amount of chain, so I chained 50, and I did 5 rows of double crochet. So we are going to do a little bit of decreasing. From here on, you are going to skip your very first stitch and go into the second with a double crochet. And the decreasing is basically skipping the first stitch, and when you get to the end of the row, you want to decrease at the side as well. And that is going to be 2 decrease per row, and you are going to do this for at least few rows. I think I'm gonna do about 5. I don't know how that will turn out eventually, but you're going to decrease and make your way up until the opposite side of the panel. I finished, instead of 5, I actually ended up doing 4. So now I am gonna show you guys. I just wanted to lay this flat just to see how it's going to eventually fall on the pocket. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to count. So I already have my pockets attached, obviously, so I'm just going to count 2 rows upwards, and that is what where I am going to attach the pocket cover, just the same way I did with the sides. But I think this time around I'm going to use a crochet hook to get this done, just so I honestly don't want to get up from the seat. So I am just going to use a crochet hook, and I'm going to use a 2.5, but you don't have to. You can still use the 5mm, but a 2.5 is going to make my stitches tighter, which means it's going to be way more secure than using a 5. So I'm just going to eye mark where I want this. I want the pocket cover to be right before this row that goes up. So I am going to just, let's see, just going to mark with my eyes. I don't know if you guys can see exactly what I'm doing, but I am going to go into the very edge of the pocket cover, and I'm going to go in there. I also want to make sure it's straight, so I don't want this to be way too much to the side or to the left or to the right. So I'm just going to grab my crochet hook and attach that, and I'm just going to single crochet these two. Again, like I said, you can also use the same method that I used for the pocket. You honestly don't have to do this. I just don't want to get up, so I'm just going to, I think I'm going to flip this over. So you can flip this over, so when you finish, the seam is going to be inside and you can just overlap it like this. So I'm just going to flip it over, and I am going to use this as my guide. So I'm just going to grab this, and that is going to be the guide. And you want to make sure you are attaching this in a straight line, or else you are going to have a very funny looking pocket cover. So you want to keep attaching it in a straight line. So if you have to cross check back and forth to make sure you're working in that line, please do, because again, like I said, you wouldn't want this to be the way it is. You wouldn't want it to be uneven. So I'm just going to go into a stitch on the sweater and on the pocket cover, and I'm going to single crochet these two, and that is honestly what I'm going to do. And when I'm done, I'm going to sew in all the loose ends, put this on so I can see. I also wanted to mention that I later on did use a white yarn for the zipper, because I just thought the blue was just too obvious. But I think when I have time and energy, because I'm just too lazy, I am going to use another zip attachment method that is just visible. It's not visible, sorry, it's going to be better than this one. So I have a video on that, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll link it down below. But for now, I'm just going to leave that white yarn on there, because I think it looks way better than the blue on the zipper, because I couldn't get like a zipper that has the actual color of these two yarns. So I just thought white would look so much better than the blue, because the blue was just too bright. So again, I'm just going to repeat what I'm doing now, and I'll show you guys the final look, which you guys have already seen. So I guess I'll just see you guys in another tutorial. But if you have any video requests, let me know down below, and I'll make a list of the requests and see if I can deliver to you guys when I can. So I'm just going to repeat this. See, when you flip this over, it looks like this, which I think is super cute. So I'm just going to repeat that, and I'll see you guys in another video.